My birthday, 2-3. Driver's license, social security number. It's all 23. It's if it's imitating my life.
You've concerned yourself with minutia, and you've drawn wild conclusions from them.
The rats appear to be scurrying off the ship, and the cockroaches are bubbling up out of rotted foundation. We got some more fun today. So I'm going to get into Fangio, the stuff that's kind of coming out of all this talk that's starting to happen. You're seeing an enmity between both Greer and McDaniel. How much do we really know? I don't know. But we do hear sports talk, so we're going to talk some stuff that's going on and cover this Fangio situation. But you got to... Every time you want to try to find something, you got to use data points. You see something, and you can't just exist on that one data point. You try to create trends, and 3 points create a line for those data points, and that's usually where a trend starts, at 3 points. We're really at that now for a lot of stuff. I know some people are saying, Chris Greer is one of the most respected GMs. Who said that? Most respected by who? I don't know. I don't see him as the most respected. I think he's got a lot of flaws to his game. Again, you can check my podcast from yesterday, but even better, go check Dudley Durong's podcast. And then I just want to get into some stuff with Tua. And the key thing for Tua is I don't see him as elite. I think he's got elite traits. I think he's in a right framework. He could be very good. I don't know if he's got what it takes to win a Super Bowl. We got to see. You don't know. When it comes down to it, you don't know. But he's not perfect. He's not in that final top category. But guys, we've been working with garbage for years. If you put Tua in the right framework, he's going to have success. More success than we have ever seen. We haven't won a playoff game. Now, to be fair to those, his injury history and concerns is legitimate. That pulls the rug out of everything. But the bottom line is this thing is not failing, like some people are saying, because of Tua. Now, he might not be the guy, but there's no way you're putting Josh Allen on this offense with what they got in the front, and he's going to win. Or Mahomes, any of these guys, look what they're dealing with, how they're running the football inside, how their offensive line protects, and what they've got going on over there. It's totally a different framework than here. Goff. Mayfield, all these guys. Mayfield, the last couple of years, struggled, Tampa, with running the football. This year, they were one of the tops running the football, especially inside. So I want to get into that. That's the two things I want to get into. Some really good stuff I got from some people, some comments. I struggle with time management, so I don't watch everybody. And so people were telling me, this guy's been saying it for this year, and this guy's been saying it for that long. I don't know all the stuff. For me, Dudley Durong, I know through the Twitters, he's been saying it. The Twitters, I'm such an old dummy. Through Twitter, he hasn't liked the offensive line, and he's been really down on Greer. But for him to put that out there like that, with that, it creates what they call an SEO and an algorithm that feeds through the network. And if you're not really specific, it doesn't have the same impact. And the Dolphins media department is watching everything. This is how one of the ways Donald Trump won the first election. He was doing all this stuff, working on algorithms and analytics and understanding the flows of things in order to, not just him, everybody's kind of doing it. So without a doubt, the Dolphins media department is paying attention. And let me tell you, Dudley Durong, his value, impact on the narrative in the media is tremendous. Some people say, they don't pay attention to. Of course they do. This is how they manipulate things. There's literally people sitting in the media department designing narratives and how to insert that into the public consciousness to maneuver the conversations. If you don't think that, then you have no clue what's going on. This is how they do it. Media and propaganda is the tool of big business, militaries, governments. Whoever has the ability to understand this stuff can direct things if they have enough leverage. And so for Dudley Durong to come out and to say this, and then having all these other guys, these bigger guys, come out and start saying it, and then like the medium to lower level guys like me and the others saying it, it's pushing a narrative. And the media department has to handle that and juggle it and deal with it. And they're making what do they call that? They call that risk assessment. And then they're trying to decide, can we manage that? This is a football team. And so narratives drive money. It drives all sorts of stuff. So I do believe Douglas do wrong, along with all these other big guys that are doing that, doing this, coming out and saying this stuff. It's fueling a fire. But the most powerful piece is you fans. Somebody had put, like, remember the banner that went over Fire Ireland? That has impact. Huge, visceral optics that create, narratives that force the hand of people. No one put, I pinned at the top, said, you can call the customer help, this customer service and say, fire Greer, just to create that drive. And some people say, well, be careful what you wish for. Listen, Chris Greer's failures in the drafting, in the free agency, all that stuff is one thing. But my animus towards him, it's, obviously partly because of that, but it's because the way he treats people, the way he's duplicitous, the way he always skates and puts the blame on other people. And so that's why I want to get into the Fangio thing right here. Chris Kauffman, 3 yards per carry, Alf. I haven't talked about Alf for a while. Great guy. He's a little hard on the Twitter thing. People don't know that if you see him on the Twitter, he's like, I sat down, had dinner with the guy. The guy's a real nice dude. And you sit down with him in these conversations, you realize he's just got a certain personality that, he's not suffering fools. But he's real smart. He knows the game. He's got access. And Chris Kauffman and Simon Clancy, they all work together, 3 yards per carry. It's a great show. I haven't pushed them. I need to push them more. Good people. Not perfect. There's things I got upset with Chris Kauffman like 2 years ago before I really knew who he was. But I get angry at myself at things I said 3 years ago. So anyway, that's not the point. Chris Kauffman said this. Guy's real smart. Watch some of the analytics stuff he does. I don't know how he does some of the things where he gets all this stuff and he pulls together. Really good job. Check him out. Twitter thing. One of the most venerated defensive minds in the sports, Vic Fangio, ran away. This is what he said in the Twitter. Ran away from Miami after 1 year and immediately suggested in private to Ron Jaworski that there was a cultural problem with the players. He also publicly complained that the personal strategy didn't fit what he wanted. So remember I had said there was a lot of player-driven failure. All through last year, I was very high on Fangio. Everyone was down after week 1. And I said I liked him a ton, and I was called crazy, and then that narrative flipped. But I had said through the course of the year, there was tons of player-driven failure. And an intellectually driven scheme that Fangio has, this is critical. He lacked the linebackers. The linebackers tie together the secondary and the front. And David Long had lots of them. I went through the film studies and said it. And now Weaver, the nice guy, has gotten rid of Long for a reason. But Fangio had to operate with that. And then he had Baker on top of it. He didn't have Brooks. And a lot of these guys that came out complaining, they were making mistakes. And so the personnel, you needed time to develop the personnel. But the thing with Fangio's system is you can find smart guys to man spots. But when you play a lot of man, you need athletes. And it's harder to find those guys rather than guys that do their job and they're smart. And so it takes a little bit longer to install, but you have a broader base of talent to choose from to fill this thing out because finding guys that can cover in man coverage at cornerback position is very, very difficult. So over the course, back to what he was saying, of course, we as Miami fans did the jilted ex-partner thing and trashed him for saying all this. But he was right. He showed discomfort with David Long right away, benched him in favor of Andrew Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel, he was here because of Fangio, and Greer didn't want any part of him. Where is David Long now? He buried Cam Smith in the depth chart. Maybe he was right. Remember, he was a bad guy. Cam was going to break out. Breaking out. His compliments towards Bradley Chubb were more than or less backhanded insults about how injury-prone Chubb was in Denver. That one year you were actually healthy, you did pretty good. Where is Chubb now? Remember, when we found out Vic Fangio is one who personally reached out to Andrew Van Ginkel as a free agent to get him back to Miami on a cheap one-year deal. Fangio leaves, Miami allows Van Ginkel to walk. How's that looking? Deshaun Elliott was Fangio's top snapper take in 2023. Pretty sure he agrees with everything Fangio has said in the criticism. Chris Kauffman nailed it. I mean, this is solid. I don't think we're seeing now guys like Holland complaining. He hasn't had 2 good seasons. He's been poor. His secondary is continuing to have breakdowns. Weaver, you can't say he's not a nice guy. You can't say he doesn't know what he's doing. Look, it's the same thing over and over again. It's a repeating pattern. And if you see Fangio's doing great, and what is he keeps saying over and over, practice matters. These guys, he said, they weren't willing to work, and you could see player-driven failure. There's something there, whether they couldn't get it or they weren't working hard enough. I don't know, but it was clearly there. We had an excellent defense last year, tons of injuries. We didn't have Fuller, and Fangio did fantastic. It's not a knock on Weaver. But Fangio, when you go back and look, this guy is epic. And he came in here and he got the Gailey, legendary, epic coach came in here and he got the. This is what we do. And we're seeing this play out now again. Now, a lot of people will say, what do you know? I had one guy say, oh, what these know-nothing YouTubers saying stuff and what, I don't know, it was useless. So this is what I said the day he was fired, Fangio. I want you to know that I call myself out. I don't say things that I didn't say. I don't do Johnny after the fact. And if I do, I say I'm being Johnny after the fact. But I have a long track record of saying things way before they happen. Am I the only one? No. But I am one of them. So here's what I said 10 months ago, right after Fangio was fired. What do you think? Don't worry. Chris Grier is going to take care of it all. We are so lucky to have him. He's obviously a guy who gets along with everybody except for Brian Flores. Brian Flores had dead bodies in the basement. But maybe I guess some of them were left over for Fangio, and he had an appetite for that because he had to go. Because Chris Grier is just a nice guy. He gets along with everybody. He has the ability to communicate, and it's just always kumbaya with Chris Grier, right? McDaniel, I want to thank Vic for his contributions in 2023. When we assessed the season, it became apparent that this was the best path forward for all parties involved. Now we can turn our focus to 24 and beyond urgency as we identify the best candidate. We remain steadfast, committed to the development of all players and building a winning team with sustainable success. What a load of crap. How can anybody not see that this is the same as the same as the same? How can anybody not go, you know what? Maybe let me rethink the Flores regime a little. Good luck in 24, Dolphins fans. I'm kind of like disassociative at this point. Inadad 430, I think it was, pointed out, he says, this is looking like a real beep show. And boy, was he a prophet. I was like, I don't know. You know, there's some weird stuff, but are they really going to get rid of this guy? I mean, he was the best side of the ball. He improved us. He is a legend. But I forgot. We have the legend in his own mind, Chris Grier. So I'm sorry. I got to be passionate. I like Fangio. Fangio was really good for us. So all the things I just said to you that I've been saying, I've said. I said this. It's pretty accurate. But understand, why am I saying that? Well, I'm saying it to toot my own horn because for how long do people call me a fringe idiot and crazy and laughed at me until it all came true? Not everything I said, but the bulk. But also, so you don't get Jedi mind tricked. Understand that was a crafted narrative that when he was leaving, they decided to put out there to obfuscate the reality. This is what they always do. They're going to do it again. They're setting up because if they part with anybody, they don't want to part with Grier. They want to part with McDaniel, even Tua. But to get rid of Grier is going to be a huge ripping out of the foundation of this team. And so somebody's got to fall this season. Somebody's got to take the blame. And so they're going to craft, just like with Flores. It's not that Flores was perfect. Flores was a young coach that came in here that overachieved. He had the owner trying to get him to tank. He wouldn't tank. Had him try to get him on the boat with Brady. He thought that was against the rules. He didn't do it. And then there was problems. Tua was forced in without him wanting to do it. He became bitter. And he started pushing that down on certain players. People say there was plenty of players that didn't like him. There's plenty of players that did. But he failed in one way. He allowed his issues at top to infiltrate his leadership, and he did wrong. He even said so with Tua. But you got to understand what the guy was going through. But not to excuse it, but just to be realistic. Same with Tua. All these years, all that media narrative on him, along with the screwed up framework, and then you're getting blamed. People, and you saw how Tua came out after the 4 weeks of being after the concussion, and he wasn't Mr. Happy. Now just imagine if that was continuing, how he would react. But as soon as Flores was there, remember, he was bad. He couldn't communicate. He couldn't get along with people. It's again the same thing. He couldn't get along with Fangio. Now his problems going on McDaniel. The narratives are being crafted to create a look, and then they figure you won't pay attention. If enough time passes, they'll get away with it. And it's not about Flores. It's about what the media department is doing to hide who Chris Grier is and whatever else is going on in the background. And they're going to do it again. And this is why I say, for people out there who have bad evaluations of this offensive line, maybe it's me, I don't know, whatever, whoever, Tua and McDaniel are tied to the success of the offensive line. If it's as good as some people are saying, or it's not terrible, it's pretty good, then what you're saying is that McDaniel is inept. He's just not making the right calls. I'm not saying he is making all the right calls, but then Tua, why can't he succeed? But, he's got this pretty good offensive line. He's got all this skill talent. But in my evaluation, which I've been sticking to, and I try to work hard to show it, is the offensive line is an anchor pulling everything down. But if the offensive line gets obfuscated, hidden, then Grier's crazy ass build, and that's what it is. It's like, dude, he put Eichenberg in at center, who'd never played before, as the primary backup last year. And even had him on the team, which is even crazier. This guy has gone so left field with his offensive line and his philosophy to it that if you hide how poorly they're doing, then you hide what he has done, and then you confuse the evals for Tua and McDaniel. And the reality is, if you fixate on McDaniel, you fixate on Tua, you don't fixate on the line, which points to Grier, then Grier will have his best chance to return. And if that's what you want, then, well, I think you'll be sorry. This is why maybe McDaniel's not the right guy. Maybe Tua's not the right guy. Maybe Weaver's not the right guy. Maybe we're soft. Whatever. But the reality is Grier's been here for 20-something years. He's been in charge since 2016. In 2019, he took over. He said, I had final say on all draft picks. He chose Charles Harris over Watt. And all those picks before that. And then he had charge again. And then, well, no, I wasn't really in charge. Flores was totally in charge. But then when they got rid of him, remember, he got all these awesome players when Flores was here, but he was in charge. But I don't get it. And now they're going to come back and say the same thing. Well, we didn't want to build a line. It was McDaniel's whole thing. And Grier's just a nice guy who just tries to make amends. He's very well respected. Let's get him another coach. Let's do Weaver. Bring Weaver in. Now, some Jan Fins fan 478 was saying there's something going around that McDaniel went behind Grier's back to Ross to get to the extension, and that's where the rift is starting. Maybe. But if you're an adult I know this is very weird because on Twitter I experienced it. You can't have disagreements without like bad feelings, and you can't get back at the person if you disagree. Or even if one person says something off color, then it's got to be all out war. It's very immature, you know? And Greer to me is a passive aggressive, weak man who can't handle things. Fangio, he should have just said, here's these players, I'm sending to the practice field, not slighted him, not gone his backdoor jerk way about him, and not created the media suit hustle on him when he left. And then we could have just focused on that and been like, oh, okay, it just didn't work out. But they do this. It's what they always say. It's not the crime, it's the cover up that always gets you. You can't leave all those skeletons in the closet without eventually a bone falling out. And then they open the closet and all the bones fall out, and that's where we're at. So you got to just hold on to this reason. Another like real smart guy, dude, big time podcast. He was saying that he's getting reports of like dissension in the backdrop and people are fighting for their jobs. And this is what I say always happens. This is when I first started in 21, I said was happening. It's in that you're fighting for your life, third phase of a football build. And it's going to be harder and harder to hide. This week, I think we'll win, most likely. You never know, though. And it might tamper it down. But there is definitely something going on in the background, clearly. So, but the thing with Tua I want to focus on is, okay, so if the offensive line is so good and Tua is so bad, and that's why we're losing, and we got to get a new quarterback in here, then I think then you're going to be, you're not really being fair in your evaluation. I'm just going to give you some stuff, okay? I've given a lot of stuff over these couple of years about the offensive line. I don't know. Take it for what you want. How efficient are quarterbacks at avoiding sacks? You see this right here. Tua is number one. Most efficient. I don't know. Take that for what you want. Here you go. Russell Wilson's by Christian DeAndre. Good article. Russell Wilson is officially elite. Aaron Rodgers is officially washed out in week 14 quarterbacks ranks. So here's week through 13, 1 through 13, QB efficiency. And you can see at the top, Jackson, Daniels, Tua, Goff, Wilson, Allen, Burrow. He's efficient in what he's got. What efficiency means is like what you're expected to do, and then what do you do above that or below that. And so you can see he's mitigating pressure in his movements, and he's efficient in what he's allowed to do. And I see TD Finn talk about how he throws so many screens, and that's a sign that he's not a good player. I like TD. I don't agree with his takes, but you can like somebody and disagree with them. I think he's wrong. I think he's worth listening to. I think he does a lot of good. I said that to him a couple of years ago, and I say it again. You need these guys that say things that people don't want to hear. It doesn't always be right. I'm not always right, but you need them. But he's wrong. He has screens. Why do you throw screens? You throw screens to offset pressure. That's why you throw the screen to one area. When the guys are coming at you, you throw behind them, and now you have the numbers game to get the ball off where you got the blockers. But one of the main reasons you throw screens, or where they're most effective, is when you blitz. And when you blitz, now you got all these extra guys coming in, and then you drop it over the side. It's to offset pressure. That's one of the main reasons to throw a screen. It's to set up the numbers game in a spot, and then it's to offset pressure. And so we throw a lot of screens, and we didn't throw this many screens last year, but halfway through the season last year, watch the screens rise up. That's when our guys started going down, and the offensive line started crapping out. And so you've got to be fair, and even if you don't like Tua, if you keep everybody's eyes on him, and even for things that are not really legit, then Greer will hide in the shadows. And like, Freddie part 75, he'll be back. Your chances now to go into the Nosferatu's castle and then put the proverbial stake into this guy's heart. is his tenure as a GM. I got to say these things. Obviously, I'm using, an analogy here, but I'm not saying hurt the guy. It's just football. We're on the verge of World War III practical nuclear weapons. This stuff is like on low end, but we got a chance to get rid of this guy. So if we don't turn into nuclear winter over here, at least we can have a football team that's coherently run. Got a little antsy. I didn't want to get this excited. So, guys, we've got to stay focused. The battle, the aim, the target is on Greer. And we've got to evaluate fairly. We've got to sit down and evaluate the offensive line. Is it terrible? Is it good? Is it in between? How's it done? Is Tua good? Is he terrible? Is he somewhere in between? McDaniel, all this other stuff. But every little disparate piece has been put together by the architect. And now this is his third build, and maybe he's going to be looking for his fourth. Gase, remember Gase, crazy Gase, with those things of him standing on top. I know more football than you. Remember that? And then he was an idiot, and he was totally crazy. The easy sell. Then he was out of here. And then Flores was the bad guy. Everybody hated him, and he had dead bodies in the basement. Fangio, he's not a good guy. This is a good guy. He's a bad guy. And now McDaniel's soft. There was one report that came out. Some players are saying, or quote unquote, that he was standing by the heater. This is the leader. They're going to shape it and then use it for you to focus on so they can commit the crime over here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Let's get ready for this Jets game. I'm not doing any more talk on this. I'll be dialing into the Jets. I got a live special guest on Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, and then I'm back at 4 p.m. Eastern at the AFC Shakedown. Come check me out there. I hope you guys are doing great. It is football. It's only football. Don't get too excited. There's real things going on in the world. But within that, let's get this goon out of here and not be fooled in another suit hustle. Curtis saying, be well, go Fins. Curtis out. Today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.